Hello, family members. Hope you're having a nice day today. Okay, I need to talk to you about Ryan Beard video, which is like, I don't know, I guess that's probably a little tacky and gauche or whatever, talking about another content creator is already kind of drama tube adjacent. And I'm like, and I want to talk about a video that they made like a week ago. I think it was maybe even like a week and a half ago. It's not even like a new video, but it didn't sit right with me at the time that I watched it. And then I watched Kat Black's video that she just put out today, and it really made me feel like I needed to say something about why that Brian Beard video didn't sit right with me. So if it sounds like I'm talking gibberish to you, then you're probably not as terminally on YouTube as I am, which is good for your mental health, I'm sure. But Kat Black is a woman who has been on YouTube for a very long time. And Ryan Beard is a non-binary individual who has been on YouTube for a very long time. And suffice to say, I like a lot of both of their content. I think that they both have very interesting perspectives. I don't always agree on everything that everyone says in any videos, but I like hearing from different people and people who have a different way of looking at things. And, an interesting artistic or humorous way of looking at things. And I'd say both of them have that. So I'm not here to bash Ryan Beard, but I am here to explain why I felt that the video about the DoorDash girl that Ryan made was just wrong, and wrong in sort of a harmful way. And honestly, if you want to just watch Kat Black's video, you probably pretty much get the same point that I'm going to make here. But I'm going to add my own spin on this because my college job was a Domino's delivery driver. I did that for like 3 years every summer and part of one of the falls. And I did it both in the rural town that I grew up in that I'd lived in my entire life, and also a more urban environment. So I have a lot of a lot of experience with what it's like being a woman who is delivering food to people. I also used to work for Amazon's executive customer relations, specifically in their delivery department. And so I worked with both customers and delivery drivers who had had bad experiences. And so I am very familiar with what delivery drivers are and are not expected to encounter in their, the course of their job, and what they are supposed to do and what is supposed to be done when things go wrong. So, the first thing that I really wanted to address, a lot of Ryan's criticism, the most firm criticism that they made was that it was not SA that happened to the young DoorDash lady who, if you haven't seen this, she posted on TikTok about a man who had indecently exposed himself to her when she was on a delivery to them. And the inadequate response of DoorDash, and then the subsequent kind of public fallout of everyone wanting to throw in their 2 cents on this. Is it SA or not? Does this count as SA or not? Here's the thing. This happened in New York. I looked it up. I actually went on, the New York Penal Code and read through stuff. Sexual assault does not have a specific legal definition in New York as far as I can tell. There are certainly sex crimes, things that we would characterize as sexual assaults. However, that is not the terminology used, nor is it defined in the penal code, as far as I can tell. So, from what I could tell, and I will include references in the description on this, this would be considered public lewdness and absolutely a crime. So, a sex crime was committed here, based on the information that we have. Obviously, there could be some sort of vast conspiracy, but I've watched the video, and I know that DoorDash has confirmed that she was an employee that was delivering for them, so I don't see any way that it would really reasonably be possible that it wasn't a sex crime. However, that has not been adjudicated by law, and so I don't want to necessarily say that as an unqualified statement. That would be irresponsible, because this is America. Innocent until proven guilty. Anyway, I encountered a few similar-ish situations when I was working as a delivery driver. Less so when I was working in my little rural small town that I grew up in. Although I do remember some shady stuff happening there, particularly at hotels, which may or may not be surprising. People go do shady stuff in motels sometimes. But nothing that was like bad directly happened to me. And the only times I was really uncomfortable and worried about my own physical safety was when I was, during the fall, I decided to try to go work near my college in a more urban area. And it was just a very poorly run location. And the delivery area was way too vast and confusing. And so, yeah, there were a few times they were a little more hairy there. But it's very easy for a situation to turn kind of creepy and weird. And when you're a single woman out wherever, at somebody else's home where they know the area and you don't, that is nerve-wracking, okay? Now, when I was working at Amazon, if this had happened, if we had gotten a report that a driver had had something like this happen to them, it would have been treated extremely seriously. I will preface this with, I haven't worked for Amazon for a few years now, so the way they do things now may be different. But at the time that I worked there, it would have been a very serious thing. It would have gone to executive customer relations. We would have handled it. Anything with like a sexual component like that is something that we're going to take very seriously. And so DoorDash not taking the situation immediately serious the way that they should have is shocking to me. I am surprised, because I would have thought, at least on a corporate level, that they would want to have a good way to handle situations like this to prevent them from having like legal accountability and legal liability. Like, I'm just kind of appalled, honestly, that she was ever put in a situation where she felt like she needed to go public. Like, I don't think she probably wanted to be like open about this and be like, oh my gosh, like most people who have sex crimes committed against them are not, like, let me tell everybody about what happened to me. It's usually kind of traumatic and they don't want to talk about it. That's usually what happens, And so I think if they had immediately, as soon as the situation had been reported, had some sort of higher level, internal system for handling. I don't know. DoorDash may or may not probably they look at their drivers a little bit more like customers than employees because of the whole like independent contractor thing and all of that. And so if they don't have like a system to handle driver needs and support that is escalated to handle situations like this that are sensitive and time sensitive as well, especially like any time of the day or night, because DoorDash does have people who deliver all sorts of weird hours of the day or night. And so, I mean, they if they don't have a system in place to fast react, they are absolutely leaving themselves open to a ton of legal liability, because there are a lot of extremely time-sensitive situations that arise when you are sending people who are either your employee or your independent contractor to customer locations that you cannot control. A big problem that I had to deal with, a frequent problem, would be people who did not restrain their aggressive dogs appropriately. And that's a very potentially dangerous situation on both sides, right? And so, we can't control what customers do. The only thing that we can really do is say, like, hey, if you're not going to do something about this, we are not going to come to your property anymore, and that's something that we took very seriously. And an incident like this would have been something that would have been considered a very high priority incident. Now, Ryan Beard in his video just very definitively says this is not SA, this is sexual harassment. And as I said, New York doesn't really have a legal definition, so I can't necessarily say, well, he's right or wrong on that statement. However, I have looked on some, like sexual assault survivor support websites, and I will include, links below that define sexual assault as any sort of unwanted sexual anything, and doesn't include physical touching. It doesn't have to. So the way that she used the word sexual assault absolutely is supported by the way that is used in literature that she may or may not have checked before she posted and called it that, okay? So for him to say that she was wrong to call it sexual assault is wrong. For him to say that he doesn't think that that's the right classification and sexual harassment is a better classification, well, yeah, sure, that's fine, but she wasn't wrong. It is absolutely legitimate for someone who was in the situation she was in to refer to what happened to her as sexual assault by, common usage of terms. It's not unreasonable for her to call what she did, okay? And for people like, oh, well, he was just in his... Here's the thing. People who have something wrong in their brain, that what makes them feel really thrilled deep down inside is to make other people uncomfortable. And for some people, they take that to a sexual place, and they are really good at trying to give themselves some sort of plausible deniability. But when you have directly called or contacted a service and said, send a person to my front door right now, and then you leave yourself in that state where you know you will be seen, that is inexcusable. Inexcusable. It's not like it was just a passive action. Somebody made that woman go to that location for that purpose. And it's about power. It's not about just pure carnal sexual pleasure. That's not what rape and sexual assault are about. It is not about the orgasm, okay? It's not about touching and feeling. It's not about the physical part at all. What drives people to commit sexual assaults and rapes and all of these awful sex crimes is a desire for power, a desire to exert power over someone else and make them do something regardless of what they want, and often knowing that they would not want that act to occur. And it really, really hurts when AMAB people talk over AFAB people on this, because they don't get it. AMAB people can be sexually assaulted and raped. They can, and it does happen. But living as a AFAB person in the United States means getting constant sexual harassment. It means having, you're just driving down the street and you happen to look out the window when you're stopped at a stop sign or stoplight, and the guy in the truck next to you makes an extremely lewd gesture at you. He would have never done that to a man, but he felt comfortable doing that to me and making me uncomfortable and feel violated. And that happened years ago, and it still shakes me up to think about it, because it was just so casual. If you haven't lived in a society where, like, a significant portion of the male population is going to feel entitled to completely depersonalize you, not see you as a person at all. I could make as many videos as I wanted trying to help young men who are dealing with loneliness or the ill effects of patriarchy, and it would not matter, because they do not see me as a person, and they wouldn't listen to me. No matter how compassionate I was, no matter how useful the information I could provide to them would be, they just completely feel entitled to just ignore everything that I say. I could never be informed enough, concise enough, astute enough for them to even give me a chance to speak to that, because they don't see me as a person. And a significant portion of that portion of the male population is also going to treat me in a aggressive or sexual way, in a way that's going to make me uncomfortable, and try to make me feel like I'm lesser by exerting their ability to make me feel uncomfortable with their sexuality. It's just gonna happen. I'm gonna go in the comment section, and people, if I comment something on like a news story, there'll be people who look up my picture and make comments about me or my body. And sometimes lewd comments, sometimes things about, wishing sexual assault upon people. That happens. There's some really vile stuff that women and other AFAB people have to deal with, that it just doesn't happen that same way for AMAB people. And it's the same sort of thing that, like, black people have to deal with. It's not obviously the same in the broad picture, but if you ever hang out with a black person and you're white and you're in a crowd that is mostly white, they may seem uncomfortable, and you might be like, well, why is that? And they'll be like, well, I don't know which of these people are racist. Odds are probably some of them are. But I can't know that until they make me uncomfortable, or until they try to make me feel like less as a human being. Until they act out, they can blend in perfectly. And that's the same thing for women and men who like to sexually abuse women, men who like to sexually abuse women. We don't know which men in a group of men are misogynists. Every single one of them could be. And we won't know until it's too late. That's gonna make you fucking paranoid, okay? And that's gonna make even acts that seem maybe not that harmful, like what happened to this young lady, the DoorDash girl, seem less threatening than they really are. What happened to her, just viscerally upsetting to me, or to the women who have been in situations like that and they understand what happened. I guess it's sort of like the physical equivalent of like a dog whistle. Like, if you're AMAB and you don't see that kind of behavior, or like adjacent kinds of behavior in the male population towards you, coming from all directions all the time, you don't necessarily become attuned to the true meaning and the true nonverbal communication being made here. The nonverbal communication was, I'm going to spell this out. That man was saying to that girl, I get to make you uncomfortable. I get to make you feel like you are less of a human being, that you don't matter, that you don't have power, that you're not important. And yet I'm going to try to have this plausible deniability so I can get away with it. And guess what? He just might be right. I've seen follow-up videos from that young girl, and she said it's possible that there won't be any sort of legal consequences. She got fired, and she got sexually assaulted. She got fired for reporting it and not just kind of letting it go like it seemed like maybe DoorDash wanted her to do, or downplay it or whatever. That awful thing happened to her, and then she got fired, and he might not have any consequences. And that is why people don't report. That's why women just put our heads down and just try to power through it and try to pretend like it didn't happen so much of the time. That's why women don't report or don't speak of things that happen to them until decades later sometimes, until after their assailant is passed away sometimes, because they don't want what happened to her to happen to them. And here we are in 2025, and the exact illustration of why women don't report happened. And then we have people like Ryan Beard, who clearly mean well. There wasn't any sort of malicious intent from my understanding. I don't see that at all. But because they don't know, because we don't talk about this as a society, because rape culture downplays things like what happened to her and tries to make it so that people don't report by downplaying it, saying it's not that big of a deal, or criticizing what she did. None of this would have happened if that man had not left his bare ass genitals just laying around for her to see after calling her and telling her to come to his house. That's what fucking happened. And when somebody who is ostensibly supportive of women and rape survivors can make a whole damn video being like, well, she shouldn't have called it this, she should have called it that, and well, she shouldn't have put the video online. A crime was committed against her. A crime was committed against her. It didn't look like she was going to get any sort of justice. And so she put that online. You know, kind of like what happened with George Floyd. People took videos of what happened to him, and it's kind of in bad taste to put a video of someone being murdered online, right? But when it looks like it's going to be ignored by the justice system, then you kind of need to do it. Well, she was in the same situation, and yet she's getting blowback from all directions, including people who should be her allies. And that's why I had to make this video, because that's why it was so upsetting to me. And Kat reminded me that the reason that I just let that disappointment and hurt that Ryan would make such a bad take and put that online and add to this false idea that this young girl deserved any sort of criticism for what happened to her. I had to talk about it. And I had to ignore that real feeling of, oh, well, is it really worth making a big deal about this? You know, the same thing happened to me when I made a video about Sam Cedar doing the RFK voice. Like, oh, Sam Cedar's takes are generally pretty good. Why do we have to criticize him? Because everybody needs criticism. When you are doing something that you could be doing better, when you're doing something wrong or suboptimal, it's not a bad thing for someone to tell you so that you can do better. We can't just let things go because we like a person. In fact, if you like and respect someone, then it's worth your time to give them that feedback. That's another thing I learned working customer service with Amazon, is that feedback is extremely valuable. And even if it hurts to hear, even if it's negative, even if it makes you feel bad, it's worth getting it. And if the feedback don't apply, let it fly. That's what my friend Derek used to say. I used to work with this guy, big old guy working at a group home with me. And that was, you know, always what he would say to people. He'd be like, if it don't apply, let it fly. And I just think that we need to do that. We need to learn how to hear criticism, decide if we think it's valid, and if it's not valid, let it go, and don't feel like you were personally attacked, okay? It's okay to be wrong. I hope Ryan Beard comes out with a video next week and says, you know, I uploaded this video. I said that the definition was used incorrectly. You know, I've seen that that's not really true. I realize now that what my video did, even though I didn't have bad intentions, was adding to this rape culture. I don't want to do that. I'm going to take all this back. I'm going to explain how to do better, how I'm going to do better, how you can do better. And then we can all move on. I hope that happens. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Ryan Beard directly is going to hear my criticism. But I got to put this out there. I got to put it out there in the world because it is important to call out people, no matter who they are, when they make mistakes, And it's actually more important when it's someone who you think might actually care and might actually listen. And so that's what I'm doing here. And as a reward for sitting through my rant, you get the cat. Fuck. It's my suckums. Isn't he cute? Look at his face. Look at this face. He's like a little cat, model cat. He's so handsome. He's ornery, but he's handsome. All right, I'll let you go. He's a cat. He can't be placed. So, all right, take care of yourselves, family members. Love you. Bye.